about 5:55, and because it's so late, all the interesting coloring is gone. I had made a video, or started making a video a little bit earlier, but there was too much noise pollution to make the video workable. Anyway, that's okay, because I have a second attempt to make. There is something of interest I could talk about, which is an extension of what I talked about in my previous videos on the scope of philosophy. One of the major questions of philosophy is, what is the purpose or meaning of life? Now, I do not believe that there are very deep philosophical answers to this question. I believe it is better to just describe what reality is to the best of our ability. As the wind takes the remaining leaves off the trees and they take their final bare form for at least several months. I believe that the true nature of reality is one where the universe is only a possibility generator. It has no greater meaning or purpose than that. If people want to give subjective meaning to their life, I suppose that is fine. But there is no absolute meaning or purpose to life or the universe. The universe only serves as a warehouse of possibilities. Now, if we take this view and look to see if there are schools of thought which encapsulate this view, among other views that I hold, we see that irrationalism fits my ideas. Irrationalism holds that there is no meaning or purpose to the universe. It also holds that there is no absolute morality. It also holds that the pursuit of knowledge is forever incomplete because humans, in their pursuit of knowledge, act as a distortion on that knowledge. Humans act irrationally. And I know that things like capitalism hold that people act rationally, but I believe as a whole, things like capitalism are irrational because it inevitably leads to the destruction of the environment, which is not a rational thing to do. If you are trying to live a healthy life. It is interesting to me how whatever idea you think you have that is somewhat novel, if you look deeply enough, you'll find that your ideas are not novel at all. Most ideas have been thought of before. This is one of the reasons why I think society is having so much trouble right now. We have essentially run out of genuine ideas. And I would argue are becoming bored with life. If we look at philosophy, for example, I would argue that most philosophy is in the business of argumentation as to why past philosophers have held right or wrong beliefs. The issue with this is that in doing so, it can be argued that no new ground is really being broken. No truly novel ideas are being unearthed. People are just making arguments that either subtly agree or subtly disagree with already established ideas. I think when there does come a time where there are truly revolutionary ideas, I think some societal ills will come to pass. As much as people make fun of the Middle Ages for being a time of minimal societal progress, I can argue that we are in a time of minimal societal progress as well. As two birds fly across the sky in the distance. It would be very interesting to be able to time travel to the future just to see how long it would take for societies of the world to come up with truly different ideas than the ideas we hold today. The pace of new ideas is slowing relative to times past. I think that is undeniable. There's even things like philosophy of time, for example. People can argue about the nature of time but I would argue that even if you have what you consider to be a novel idea today, physics could strike down that novel idea tomorrow with new data sets. This happens all the time. I think that's maybe the reason why people want to argue so vehemently about the nature of knowledge. They want knowledge to be more complex because more complexity would allow people to argue that their ideas deserve more weight than they probably do. I'm not saying that the senses are the end-all be-all of knowledge, but they are the best we have. To argue that there is a greater way to obtain knowledge, or that there is an absolute standard of knowledge that is beyond the senses, is just wishful thinking, in my opinion. The senses can for sure be manipulated and deemed unreliable. But that is done through altered states of intoxication and emotional trauma or fading memory. In general, I would argue the senses to be a reliable determiner of reality. If one were to argue that one person observation is not reliable, I would concede that. Reliability comes in mass. When many observers conclude the same thing, that is where truth is born. Knowledge relies on a collective. Knowledge is not individual. Without collective agreement, there can be no truth and no knowledge. That runs in stark contrast to the way some people act. The people that want to believe that they are in sole possession of the truth, and that everyone else around them is wrong. That is an attitude held by what I would argue are as a nut falls from the tree. Mentally unstable people. Touching on another topic that I talked about in a previous video, if we were to talk about what exists and what does not exist, you could say that the universe generating possibilities is the only thing that exists. Therefore, nothingness cannot exist. Nothingness may exist in an individual sense, in the sense of there being possibly no life after death. However, a universal nothingness most likely does not exist. You cannot continually generate possibilities in a space of nothingness. Nothingness does not allow for such a universe. Thinking about time in a way that is not completely derived from physics, a more abstract view of time, I can argue that time is the expression of the ultimate possibilities of the universe. Time is the way in which the universe expresses all of its possibilities. See, philosophy is kind of fun. It just requires you to be able to make arguments that are grounded in some sense of reason, and hopefully it serves to expand people's minds to hopefully true possibilities. I wonder if there's a squirrel behind me making that noise. I wouldn't be able to see it now, it's too dark. I kind of enjoy metaphysics and epistemology. I do not enjoy ethics, but I do like the attempted descriptive nature that metaphysics and epistemology try to offer. I think that is going to be the end because it is getting dark and my body hurts. But I hope you enjoyed this free-flowing discussion, and hopefully there's not so much noise pollution.